Max Verstappen scored his most dominant victory of the 2023 Formula One season on Sunday, winning the Hungarian Grand Prix by 33 seconds from McLaren's Lando Norris, and in doing so, Red Bull became the team with the most consecutive race wins in the history of the sport, with 12 victories. The Milton Keynes-based team's winning streak began at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the 2022 season finale, and this year they have won every race so far. Within that run, 10 races have been won by Verstappen, the last 7 in a row by the Dutchman, with the other 2 coming from Sergio Perez in Saudi Arabia and Azerbaijan earlier in the season. Red Bull broke a record that McLaren had reached in 1988 when it won the first 11 races of that season, starting with the Brazilian Grand Prix at Jacarapagua. Ayrton Senna claimed honours 7 times and Alain Prost added the rest in the great McLaren MP4-4, a car that, like this year's Red Bull RB19, was powered by Honda. A great achievement for the Japanese manufacturer, no doubt. Regarding Red Bull, the milestone they reached at the Hungaroring should not be underestimated, as it took 35 years to break McLaren's record and was something that neither Ferrari in its golden years with Michael Schumacher nor Mercedes during its reign with Lewis Hamilton were able to achieve. Both teams reached 10 consecutive victories in their periods of maximum dominance, something that in the case of the Brackley-based team they did on 3 occasions. But 11? 12? They couldn't do that. That's why Red Bull boss Christian Horner expressed a huge satisfaction by saying, "We achieved history today, which is something very special for the whole team to achieve the record of 12 consecutive Grand Prix victories. To break that record from 1988, which I remember watching Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost, and the great McLaren team at the time led by Ron Dennis," he said. "It has taken 35 years, but we are a team that has managed to break that, particularly with the quality of the opposition that we're racing against. It's a phenomenal achievement and one that the whole team can be just immensely proud of." While Verstappen dominated, leading all 70 laps of the Hungaroring race by more than 30 seconds, there are fascinating aspects of the Grand Prix to take a look at. For starters, Verstappen had been beaten to pole position on Saturday by Lewis Hamilton by 0.003 of a second, setting the Mercedes driver's first pole since Abu Dhabi 2021. Verstappen was unhappy with his car's balance at the end of qualifying, but on Sunday, the situation was the complete opposite. He started well from second on the grid, overtook Hamilton and never looked back. "That was so enjoyable to drive, especially in that last stint," said Verstappen to Red Bull over the radio after crossing the checkered flag. What changed? Nothing on the car, as teams are not allowed to make setup changes for the race after qualifying without incurring a penalty. What is concrete is that Red Bull's engineers prioritized the setup focus on rear tire temperature given the heat expected on Sunday, and without moving from what they wanted in those terms, tried to give Verstappen a car as good as possible for qualifying. He missed pole position by 0.003 of a second, but it was enough to win the Grand Prix by 33 seconds, a wise decision by any standards. And it was precisely Verstappen's overwhelming dominance that prompted Mercedes boss Toto Wolff to acknowledge that Red Bull, their great rivals of recent years, are making fools of them. That is where they are. It is like a field of Formula 2 cars against a Formula 1 car. They've done the best job. Within the regulations, they've done the best job," he said afterward. In fairness, it's not just Red Bull that Mercedes should be worried about, but also McLaren after Lando Norris completed another great race to take his MCL 60 to second place, repeating the magnificent result achieved 2 weeks earlier at the British Grand Prix, despite the team supposedly not having high expectations for Hungary due to the slow cornering characteristics of the track, where their car, in theory, would not adapt that well. What if it had adapted well then? The reality is that McLaren, accompanied by Oscar Piastri's 5th place on Sunday, has scored 58 of its 87 points this year in the last 2 races and has left its rivals, especially Ferrari and Aston Martin, needing to respond. Both teams, as in Silverstone, struggled again last weekend, even though the 2 tracks were completely different. Ferrari only had Charles Leclerc in the top 10 in qualifying on Saturday and Sunday. In a race with a slow pit stop and a speeding penalty, the Monegasque could only manage 7th, followed by teammate Carlos Sainz and behind the Mercedes of George Russell, who moved up to 6th after starting 18th. That performance doesn't meet the standards of the Maranello-based team. On the Aston Martin side, the team that was the standout at the start of the year with one podium after another from Fernando Alonso could only manage 9th and 10th in Hungary. the Spaniard said the change in the Pirelli tyres construction that was first used at Silverstone has affected them, and that probably 9th place is the reality at the moment. With little time to breathe, Formula One heads next weekend to a track that is very different from the one in Hungary, as it's time for the Belgian Grand Prix at the beautiful and challenging Spa-Francorchamps. It's a venue where Verstappen excelled last year to win after starting 13th, so it's hard to think that it will be the place where Red Bull will lose its unbeaten season if such a place exists. It will be the team's second race with the upgrades that they brought to Hungary, so they have gathered a lot of information, and Verstappen feels very comfortable there, boosted by the thousands of Dutch people who come to Belgium every year to support him. It remains to be seen whether Red Bull can repeat the 1-2 they achieved in 2022 with Sergio Perez, who arrives with confidence high after taking 3rd place on Sunday at the Hungaroring. This allowed him to finish on a high a weekend that started in the worst way on Friday, when he crashed with a rookie mistake 3 minutes into practice 1, and then on Saturday he was only 9th in qualifying. Spa will be a race where Checo Perez will need to be again on the podium to bury doubts about his future, especially after Daniel Ricciardo did well on his return to Formula One with AlphaTauri in Hungary, qualifying and finishing the race in 13th position, beating teammate Yuki Tsunoda on both days. It'll be very interesting to see if McLaren can confirm its place as the second force in the current F1 on a track that is supposed to be better than Hungary for its car. However, team principal Andrea Stella was quick to caution that Spa's few slow corners may still be a handicap. Mercedes, meanwhile, cannot be ruled out, especially as Toto Wolff felt his car was second fastest last Sunday, only for the team to fail to monetize it. It's important to note that the Belgian Grand Prix will be a sprint race weekend, so teams and drivers will only have one free practice on Friday. Be warned, Ferrari did well in these conditions in Azerbaijan and Austria, the locations of their only podiums so far in the 2023 season, so that will perhaps help the red cars to show some competitiveness again, and at Spa, the track where Ferrari is the most successful team with 14 victories. Belgium will be the last round ahead of the summer break, and hopefully we can enjoy a frantic Grand Prix in a track equally loved by drivers and fans all over the world. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to The Grid Report, where we bring you the latest F1 updates.